Boys! CeilingMMA here. Today I'm going to be yapping about who I think the most underrated and the most overrated UFC fighter in each division is. This channel banner and profile picture are shit because originally I don't even know why I made this, but I did. And I used some random tutorial, so excuse that. But yeah, let's get on into it. Alright lads, starting off with the flyweight division, I'm going to go and I'm going to glaze a bit here, but I'm talking about Brandon Moreno. Firstly, this man outstruck Kai Kara-France, who's just finished Steve Erceg, who like 2 months ago you lot were saying is the best flyweight striker, Rob Pantoja, and this guy also in the fourth fight against Figgy dominated him. You know, I get the stoppage was a bit weird because of the cut, but like he outstruck him, outgrappled him every single round, and was up like 3-0 or 4-0. I don't remember how many rounds that fight was for. I won't lie. He was up that many rounds against Figueiredo, who right now is one of the best bantamweights on the planet. People dismissed him after the Royval fight, even though that fight was at altitude, right? Royval trains at altitude. Moreno does not train at altitude, and Moreno still almost won that fight, despite not fighting like he usually does, backing up the whole fight and basically just throwing the right hand. He also has like the fastest hands in MMA, like faster than Demetrious Johnson, who I'm going to get into after this. He's a top 5 boxer in MMA, I don't want to hear it, and yeah, he gives any flyweight fighter a tough fight. I think he's going to beat Amir Albazi, maybe that's just me. Yeah, we'll see. Alright, next up I want to talk about Demetrious Johnson. Now before you come after me, I'm not shitting on DJ. I think he's a top 3 GOAT of all time. He's the flyweight GOAT. We know this. We know he's underrated by the promotion. You know, for trading him over to ONE FC, that was dumb. But TikTok fan base, man, and I'm going to talk about this a lot in this video. This is going to be a Lucas Tracy phrase. My bad. You're going to see me using, which is that TikTok fighters, right? This guy's like best win is Henry Cejudo before he was elite, like before he knew how to strike. This guy lost to I think Ian McCall and was it John Fitch? You know, I've seen polls on like this guy's undefeated on YouTube polls. I've seen polls who wins at bantamweight, Dominic Cruz or Demetrious Johnson. Dominic Cruz gets 20% of the votes, even though the fight already happened and he won. And people are acting like he'd walk through current flyweight when like all the look on screen, Pantoja, Moreno, Kai Kara-France and Steve Erceg are all tough matchups for him, you know. Pantoja, he's got that constant relentless pace and grappling, and he's used it against better opponents than DJ ever grappled against. Brandon Moreno would probably outstrike DJ, he's just got faster hands, you know, he's finished Kai with kicks too, so he's pretty well rounded on the feet. And, you know, Kai Kara-France and Erceg are both elite strikers with basically rock solid takedown defense. Like, I think he could beat all 4 of those guys, but they're all going to be tough matchups for him. So you don't need to stop pretending like this guy is just invincible. Like, he's amazing, but he's not invincible, and he's not the GOAT, bro. Like GSP and Jones have 10 times better resumes than him. If you want to take Jones out because of steroid use, I get that. GSP is still better than this guy. Alright, we're going to get into maybe a bit controversial here, but the guy with the most fraudulent losing streak in MMA, Petr Yan. I'm not kidding when I say people say this guy's fallen off or he's washed when he's like 30, right? His only legit loss was to Merab. Like, look back on his career. Aljo, he was dominating that fight, then he landed an illegal knee and got stripped of the belt, even though when Magomed Ankalaev did the same thing in Abu Dhabi, because, well, right? Magomed Ankalaev did the same thing in Abu Dhabi to Johnny Walker, and it was a no contest. But Petr Yan gets the loss and gets his belt stripped. What? Right. Second Aljamain Sterling fight. Let's talk about that. It was a very close fight. I do think Aljo won, but Petr Yan didn't have cornermen in that fight. You know how much of an advantage having cornermen in combat sports is? It's crazy, right? Then he got robbed by Sean O'Malley. Like, that fight was a robbery. And then the Merab loss, fair play, you know. Stylistically, Merab's just a really tough matchup for Petr Yan, you know. Petr Yan likes to cover up when someone comes in with punches, and as soon as Petr covers up, Merab just shoots for the double leg because he's got busted cardio, bro. But this guy's still one of the most skilled bantamweights, and he has an amazing resume, you know. Corey Sanhagen, that fight was close for the first 2 rounds, then Petr just beat the shit out of him. Petr also, you know, he outstruck Jose Aldo. He beat Uriah Faber, which isn't as impressive, and recently he's got a win over Song Yadong, which is impressive. You know, Song Yadong is a very good fighter. This guy's probably the best boxer in UFC, at least he's one of. He's got really good, flashy, but also effective kicks, and he's out-grappled Aljamain Sterling in their fights, which kind of shows he's got good wrestling, he's got good trips, you know. He knows how to control people. He showed that against O'Malley, you know, winning the first 2 rounds with mainly control time. People just underrate this guy, and I think he is still championship material. I think if he gets a title shot, and O'Malley beats Moran, this guy could become champion. You never know. It's interesting. I'm going to be saying this a lot, but hear me out on TJ Dillashaw being overrated, okay? People say this man is the bantamweight GOAT, even though he lost to Cruz. I get it was close, but he lost to Cruz. He lost to Cejudo, and you know what? I won't count the Aljo loss because he had one arm and he still, you know, continued fighting. Respect for that. But he's not the bantamweight GOAT. His best win is probably like Henan Barrow or Cody Garbrandt, right? You've got guys with Aljamain Sterling who's beaten Petr Yan, Henry Cejudo, TJ, you know. You've got Dominic Cruz, who has TJ on his resume, who has Uriah Faber on his resume, you know. And they all have the same amount of title defenses, except those 2 guys have better resumes than this guy, you know. Like TJ, and I see people on TikTok, right, all the time. In his prime, TJ Dillashaw is beating Petr Yan and Sean O'Malley. Like, I've seen people saying that. Like, I'm not kidding. Petr Yan is clear of this guy. O'Malley will probably knock this guy out. O'Malley's a bit more of an argument because, you know, you could say he can mix it up, but like Sean O'Malley's got a good grappling defense, you know. He's got pretty good scrambles, and he's powerful and dangerous on the feet, you know. And also this guy popped for steroids. That's the obvious one, you know. I do think, you know, people discredit this guy more than they do for Jones, which is a bit dumb, you know. They should both be discredited equally, but still, I think he's overrated. You can come at me for that. It was actually tough finding a featherweight who was like properly underrated, but I eventually landed on Arnold Allen, who's one of my favourite featherweights. He gave this new, more refined, honed, better defensively, patient, powerful version of Max Holloway his toughest fight. The fight against Evloev was honestly a robbery, and, you know, Mosar was being a pussy that whole fight, you know, sitting on his knees in front of another man because he knows Arnold can't actually do anything. And Arnold had a really good performance against Giga Chikadze. It was a close fight, but, you know, Arnold adapted as the fight went on. He was setting up the left hand to the body really well. And he was just doing a really good job against Giga. People need to talk about this man more, about how he's one of the best featherweights in the world, you know. I don't think he would beat Ilia, but I think there's a lot of guys, like, I think he'd beat Yair Rodriguez. I think he could definitely beat Brian Ortega. You know, he's giving most people in the top 5 featherweight a really good fight, and he's beating a lot of them. So you lot need to stop underrating Arnold Allen. Now for overrated, I landed on a 2-way tie between Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway, because I feel like both sets of fans are acting like Ilia by any way he wants, or Max by any way he wants. Like, can you not accept this is a close fight? Like, Ilia has really good boxing in the pocket, and that's probably where he'll beat Max, but Max has better straights and uppercuts, and he's better long range and has shown better head movement, and he could use the kicks more, you know. He also struggles against shorter opponents like Ilia, which is definitely where Ilia could beat him, you know. And Ilia can mix it up. Max has good grappling defense. My point is, this is a close fight. I don't even know who I'm going to pick for this. We'll get to that in a future video. But, you know, Ilias gets overrated for beating Josh Emmett, who isn't a combination puncher, isn't even really a good boxer. He's powerful and throws singular shots. And knocking out Volk, who was coming off a knockout, 35, and has always had a questionable chin, you know, getting dropped by Max in the second fight, getting dropped by Brian Ortega, Chad Mendes. Max gets overrated for beating up Gaethje with light man skill. People are like, it's impressive because no one was saying he was going to win before that, or like a lot of people were saying Gaethje. I was picking Max before that, to be honest. Yeah, it's a close fight. You don't need to stop overrating both of these guys. You know, it's every argument. It's either Ilia destroys him, Max destroys him. Like, and I see you, Johnny at Arcs MMA. You know who I'm talking about with your Ilia Topuria glazing. You know, can't we just admit this is a close fight? For underrated at lightweight, I actually think this one might be a bit, like, controversial. I'm going with Justin Gaethje. People shit on this man too much after the Max Holloway fight, but Max Holloway is one of the best strikers in the UFC, you know, and this guy actually dropped Max Holloway in that fight, which, it's impressive, you know. He's probably the most powerful lightweight, considering he dropped a guy who has never been dropped before and taken the most strikes. He outstruck Rafael Fiziev in their fight. I mean, Fiziev won the first round, but Gaethje won the other two. And he finished Dustin Poirier, which is a really good win, to be honest. Dustin Poirier is amazing on the feet. Everyone knows that. And like even in the fights he's losing, he's finding success on the feet. Like against Charles Oliveira, he got dropped in that fight, but he dropped Charles like once or twice before that. Once again, Max Holloway where he got knocked out, he dropped Max in the 4th round. My point is that if we're not counting Max Holloway, Gaethje is maybe the best striker at lightweight, and I just think he gets really underrated considering you lot were saying he was the best striker at lightweight after the Poirier fight, but now you switched up. Now for overrated at lightweight, I'm going to go with prime Tony Ferguson. I do think out of the guys he fought, you know, Poirier, McGregor, Gaethje, Barboza, so those RDA, Tony would have been his hardest fight, you know. He's got really good grappling and wrestling offensively. He's messy, he's dangerous on the feet, pretty unpredictable, which would be tough for Khabib, you know. But he had problems with his striking defense, you know, like he was getting rocked. I think he got dropped in that fight. It's kind of hard to tell if it was a slip or like a knockdown by Kevin Lee, you know. He's getting hurt on the feet by like pretty much every good guy he fought, even when he was in his prime, you know. And I think like a lot of people act like this guy's the best lightweight ever. Like I think even in his prime he's losing to Charles, Islam and Khabib, and probably Arman Tsarukyan too, although that's you know, all those fights are interesting. I just think people do overrate this guy. Now I know people are going to disagree with this one. For underrated at welterweight, I've got Leon Rocky Edwards. He was shown after the Bilal fight, when everyone was on this hype train, when he became champ, when he beat Usman the first and second time, even when he beat Colby, there was a lot of people on the hype train. The thing is, shitting on Leon for losing to Bilal, which I see all the time, like I see someone says something good about Leon in a comment section and it's bro lost to Bilal. Like, you're shitting on Bilal at the same time, bro. Bilal is an elite fighter, he's really good, and you can't shit on Leon for losing to someone that good, you know. I mean, this guy beat Usman twice, you know. The second fight was obviously a comeback KO, but he did win the first round, and you know that was before he gassed out at altitude. And the third fight was, you know, people like to talk about Leon cheating in that fight, like grabbing the fence. Usman grabs the fence all the time, like literally all the time. He did that against Leon. That's the thing. So yeah, and he beat Colby too. You know, Colby was shit scared of this guy in the octagon. Leon hurt him pretty bad. Could have finished him, but you know he's not really a guy to go for the finish. To be fair, I get why people hate on him for like having slow-paced, kind of boring fights, but like people act like he just like was never good or he's the worst champion. Like I see fucking Aiden Ross, the casual, talking about that. Like, nah, he's a good fighter. This is the biggest like hear me out of this video, maybe. I mean, it might have been DJ, but like, all I have to say about this guy is such a TikTok fighter. Like, I see so many edits of this guy, which is fair enough, you know. There are edits to all sort of fighters on TikTok. There's edits to underrated fighters on TikTok. But like, my point is that I see people saying this is the best striker at welterweight ever. Like, he's better than Wonderboy on the feet. Like, no, he isn't, bro. I'm sorry. If he was the best striker at welterweight, he would not be, you know, having a robbery win over Nick Diaz, where he was like having a war with him on the feet. You know, he would not be having a fight that close with Robbie Lawler, where he was having a war with him on the feet. You know, he's flashy, he's good, but honestly, not the best welterweight striker. Probably top 5, but just incredibly overrated. You know, once again, I see people saying, yeah, if GSP isn't champion, then Carlos Condit would have been champion. I don't know about that, bro, because you still had guys like Lawler and Diaz, and you still had them in the rankings. You know, so I think he's overrated. I do think he's good. I think it's mainly like TikTok that makes these guys very overrated. So if you're on YouTube, a lot of the time you might not know what I'm talking about. But yeah. Now for underrated at middleweight, I've gone with Jared Cannonier. Now this one might not be too controversial. You know, he was beating Nasimadinov before that fight got stopped early. He had an absolute war with Caio Borralho, who is like a contender on the rise now. He's powerful, he's dangerous, he's good on the feet, you know. He had a war with him. Obviously, we know Borralho won that, but still. And literally in that fight, he was out cold when Borralho dropped him. And then he literally got woken up by ground and pound and stayed in the fight, which is crazy. This guy moved from heavyweight to light heavyweight to middleweight and was still a top contender, which is really impressive, you know. A lot of the time, it's lighter man skill, but this guy had some weird, like, heavier man skill, where when he moved down, he was more skilled, he was really good. And he has a really good resume at middleweight, you know. He's only really in his prime, he's only really losing to the best guys. Like, you guys forget this guy's like 40, but like, he's only losing to Whitaker. He beat up Vettori. He had a close fight with Izzy. He beat Strickland, although that fight was pretty questionable. I just think this guy's underrated, to be honest. Now for overrated, I'm gonna go on a bit of tangent here. I'm going with dog bender himself. It's mainly with the striking with this guy. People still act like he's the best striker at middleweight, or even in the UFC. I see you, Kenny Okoye. I see you, mate. I know what you're doing. After everyone that's like, he got 49-46 by Sean Strickland and dropped by Sean Strickland. The second Whittaker fight, he dropped Whittaker in the first round. Then he lost the fight. I don't even care. He lost that fight, right? He's having a close fight with Jared Cannonier on the feet. You know, Marvin Vettori was 50-45 sure, but it was really slow paced, and every round was like kind of close, which is, I just think that's a bit embarrassing, you know. In terms of Pereira, people are always saying, yeah, Izzy's more skilled, but Pereira just has power. Bro, in the first fight, Izzy won the first round with striking. Pereira won the second round with striking. Every judge scored in that round, by the way. The third round was mainly grappling, but when it was on the feet, Pereira was winning. Izzy won the fourth round, fair enough. Fifth round, Pereira perfectly checks his leg kick, nothing to do with power, backs him up against the fence without throwing strikes. Then there's such a strike differential. It's so dominant with how Pereira's teeing off on him that he got stopped standing. Like, what am I missing? And he got outstruck by Blachowicz, a weight class up, in the first 2 rounds of their fight. Jan Blachowicz was checking his kicks, making him miss, and outboxing him. You know, and Dricus wobbled the shit out of him, threw him to the ground, and submitted him. You know, like, I'm just saying, I think this guy is really overrated. He's a good striker, but I honestly think Strickland and Whittaker are better than him. That might just be me. Now, I wasn't 100% sure with underrated at light heavyweight, but I think I'm going to go with Alexander Gustafsson, because I feel like even after everything he did, people don't talk about this man enough. Like, he gave Jon Jones, like, one of his toughest wins. You know, I do think Jones won that fight, but it was really tough, you know. And people are always like, oh yeah, Jones was partying before that fight. Like, was he really? Because Jones showed really good endurance in that fight. Like, he won the later rounds, and it's like, is that really what someone who's partying and doing crack before a fight shows? DC, incredibly tough fight. You could have given it to Gustafsson, but it was really close, you know. He knocked out Glover Teixeira, who in his 40s became a champion. Like, this guy knocked out prime Glover, who became a champion in his 40s, you know. And he's only losing, like, after he got knocked out by Jones in the second fight. He's losing to these really good guys like Rumble, and then he did lose to Anthony Smith, but it's like, that was a washed up Alexander Gustafsson. Like, prime Gustafsson could beat Rumble. He's definitely beating Anthony Smith. Like, people underrate this guy. Yeah. Now, for overrated light heavyweight, I've gone with Khalil Rountree. I'm not actually, like, 100% sure on this one, because sometimes people, like, really underrate him. But most of the time what I see is people really overrating him, because he gets a lot of edits made on TikTok. You know, he's a cool guy. He's got a cool story. He's got a really nice fighting style with our Muay Thai style. But, like, genuinely, if you think this guy beats Pereira, what are you on? Like, this guy was having a close fight with Anthony Smith where he was actually losing a lot of the boxing exchanges before the knockout. Genuinely, right? And if that's happening to you, you're not beating Alex Pereira, you know? This guy got knocked out by like 3 elbows in the clinch from Johnny Walker and some ground and pound from Ion Cutelaba, which is like, that also shows he has a questionable chin. He drops his hands when leaving exchanges, which, I mean, you're getting caught by Pereira if that happens. I just feel like I see people saying he's like the best light heavyweight striker and all this stuff, and that he beats Alex. He doesn't. He didn't deserve the title shot. I get it. You know, Magomed Ankalaev declined the fight on short notice, and like Magomed is just being a bitch. But like, still, this guy didn't deserve the title shot. He's overrated by the company, overrated by a lot of the fans. He's actually one of my favourite light heavyweights. I just felt the need to say this. For underrated at heavyweight, I've gone with... People forget, man. People forget about Prime Stipe Miocic. This guy got disrespected by the company. Like, he had one of the best heavyweight resumes. He's beating all these, like, top-tier heavyweights. JDS. He's beating Mark Hunt, who was a legend back in the day. Daniel Cormier. Like, and you know what? After he lost the first DC fight, the company, like, they were just not going to give him the rematch, despite the fact that at the time he had 3 title defences, you know. He'd beaten Ngannou as well, who was a really big prospect. They were just underrating him, and then he went and beat DC twice. Prime Stipe Miocic is a tough fight for any heavyweight right now. Stipe right now is getting melted by most of the best heavyweights, but like, Prime Stipe had really good boxing. That I think that instantly makes it an interesting fight with Aspinall. And honestly, there's a very good chance that Prime Stipe is beating Jon Jones, because if he's able to, grapple with Daniel Cormier and stuff his takedowns, who was definitely more of a natural heavyweight than Jon, like, there's a very good chance he can outbox and beat Jon Jones right now. And I don't care what you fucking Jones Glazers say. This guy was underrated. He still is, Right now he's getting beaten by most heavyweights, but back then, legend. And finally, overrated at heavyweight, we have the champion. Not really. Jon Jones. This guy's ducking Aspinall. If you say he isn't, you're lying. He literally, there's a screenshot in Twitter DMs of someone asking him why he isn't fighting Aspinall, and he said he wants to fight an old man and ride off into the sunset. Like, we know he's doing that. We know he's ducking. Everyone knows he's ducking. Dana glazes this guy for ducking Tom Aspinall, People say, oh, Jones by whatever he wants if he fights Tom Aspinall. Fuck off. Like, no way. Bro, Suragan had no grappling defense. He got out-grappled easily by Ngannou, right? And, like, Jon Jones submitting him, like, it's impressive, but it's not enough to tell me, oh yeah, you'd beat Tom Aspinall, the guy who's sub-Volkov, sub-Darlovsky. He's shown he has a good ground game and is also lightning fast on the feet, and has beaten 5 out of the top 10 at heavyweight. Also, he's not undefeated. I don't care what you lot say, because he lost the Reyes fight, right? And you lot say, oh, he lost you say he lost the Reyes fight, but what does it say if you go on UFC.com and look at his record? Okay, then what about the Matt Hamill fight? If you look at his record, it says he lost that. With Jones fans, it's either, oh well, we know he really won the Matt Hamill fight, or, oh no, well, he officially won the Reyes fight. Like, either he lost to Hamill or he lost to Reyes. Like, pick one, because you can't say he's undefeated. Alright, that concludes this video. If you did like the video, consider liking it, maybe subscribing. I think, comment down below if you think I was right or wrong. You probably thought I was wrong, because these are a lot of controversial kind of takes. In a bit, lads.